The Sheep Pig by Dick King-Smith. Chapter 11. Today is the day. The day when it dawned was just that little bit too bright. On the opposite side of the valley, the trees and houses and haystacks stood out clearly against the background in that three-dimensional way that means rain later. Farmer Hogget came out and sniffed the air and looked around. Then he went inside again to fetch waterproof clothing. Fly knew, the moment that she set eyes on the boss, that this was the day. Dogs have lived so long with humans that they know what's going to happen, sometimes even before their owners do. She woke Babe. "Today," she said. "Today what, Mum?" said Babe sleepily. "Today's the day of the Grand Challenge Sheepdog Trials," said Fly proudly, "which you, dear," she added in a confident voice, "are going to win." With a bit of luck, she thought, and tenderly she licked the end of his snout. She looked critically at the rest of them, anxious as any mum that her child should be well turned out if it is to appear in public. "Oh, Babe," she said, "your coat's in an awful mess. What have you been doing with yourself? You look as though you've been wallowing in the duck pond." "Yes." "You mean you have?" "Yes, Mum." Fly was on the point of saying that puppies don't do such things when she remembered that he was, after all, a pig. "Well, I don't know about large white," she said. "You've certainly grown enormous, but that's anyone's guess what colour you are under all that muck. Whatever's to be done?" Immediately her question was answered. "Come, Pig," said Hogget's voice from the yard, and when they came out of the stables, there stood the farmer with hosepipe and scrubbing brush and pails of soapy water. Half an hour later, when a beautifully clean, shining Babe stood happily dripping while Hogget brushed out the tassel of his tight curled tail till it looked like candy floss, Mrs. Hogget stuck her head out the kitchen window. "Breakfast ready," she called. "But what in the world bist doing that pig? Taking in pig shows, summat? I thought you was going to drive up and watch trials today. Anybody think you was going to in the way you've got him all done up? And oh my God, he doesn't look like a sheepdog. He'd be sheep pig, wouldn't he? Whoever heard of such a thing? I might just be daft though. It's you that's daft, really, carrying him about in that poor Land Rover, the size he is now. Bottom fall out. Shouldn't wonder. You ain't surely going to drive him all that way with him in the back just so's he can watch?" "No," said Farmer Hogget. Mrs. Hogget considered this answer for a moment with her mouth open, while raising and lowering her eyebrows, shaking her head and drumming on the window-sill with her fingertips. Then she closed her mouth and the window. After breakfast she came out to see them off. Fly was sitting in the passenger seat. Babe was comfortable in a thick bed of clean straw in the back, of which he now took up the whole space. Mrs. Hogget walked round the Land Rover giving out farewell pats. "Good boy," she said to Babe, and "good girl" to Fly, and to Hogget. "Good boy, and have you got your sandwiches and your thermos of coffee and your raincoat? Looks as if it might rain. Thought I felt a spot just now, though I suppose it might be different where you're going, seeing as it's 100 mile away. That reminds me, have you got enough petrol? Or if not, money to get some if you haven't. If you do, see you do what I mean. Drive carefully. See you later." 2 o'clock, said Hogget, and before his wife had time to say anything, he added, "On the telly. Live," and he put the Land Rover into gear and drove away. When Mrs. Hogget switched on the television at 2 o'clock, the first thing in the picture that she noticed was that it was raining hard. She dashed outside to fetch her washing in, saw the sun was shining, remembered it wasn't washing day anyway, and came back to find the cameras showing the layout of the course. First there was a shot of a huge pillar of stone, the height of a man, standing upright in the ground. "Here," said the voice of the commentator, "is where each handler will stand, and from here each dog will start his outrun. He can go left or right to get into position behind his sheep. Today each dog will have 10 sheep to work. They will be grouped near that distant post called the holding post." All the time the cameras followed his explanations. "And then he must fetch his sheep through the fetch gates, all the way back to handler's post and round it, and then the dog drives the sheep away to the left as we look at it, and through the drive-away gates, turns them right again, and straight across the line of his fetch, though, through the cross-drive gates, and right again to the shedding ring, and when he's shed his sheep and collected them again, then finally he must pen them here." "Mouthy old thing," said Mrs. Hogget, turning the sound off. Some folk never know how to hold their tongues. Keeping on and on about them silly gates, why don't he just show us a picture of spectators? Might catch a glimpse of Hogget and fly. Never knows, though not Peg, I hopes. He's surely not daft enough to walk about with a peg. Can't see why he wanted to take it all the way just to lie in the back of the Land Rover. He might have done better to leave it here and then let her sit and watch telly in front of the comfort, which is more than some of us got time for. I got work to do. And she stumped off to the kitchen, shaking her head madly. On the silent screen, the first handler walked out and stood up in his position behind the great sarsen stone, his dog standing by him, tense and eager in the pouring rain.